Alright you guys, so I'm going to be making a corset. I'm using this red fabric that we have. It's like a red satin fabric, and then here's the lining I'm going to use. This is just like a cotton fabric. Here is the pattern that we're going to be using. This is actually a free pattern that Kiana Bonolla had on one of her videos, so I'm just going to be using this. I did just wash this fabric, so I am going to iron it out and iron this out as well, and then we'll come back to see what's the next. I ironed the fabric out and I try to lay it out as flat as possible, and I just put the pattern pieces. So as you can see, this is supposed to be against a grain line, which would mean this should actually be this way. However, this fabric, I'm making a corset, and if I put it the other way, the fabric has stretch this way it has no stretch. So I want to make sure the corset is like mimicking a real corset where it doesn't stretch. That way you can just pull it in tight, but you can opt to do it, you know, whichever way you see fit. So now we're just going to cut these out, and here's the shell lining I'm going to be using. So I'm simply going to cut this out and then do the same thing with this, and then we'll sew it all together. At this point we're just cutting out the pattern here. Make sure that you fold it, that way you can only cut it once rather than cutting each piece twice. That's what I'm doing here. Alright, so I just finished cutting out the red fabric and then the shell lining the white fabric. Now we're just going to sew all the pieces together. With this corset, you want to start with the bust area, and you're going to sew these two together, those two. Okay you guys, so I finally finished sewing together all the seams on both the shell and the regular fabric. So now we're just going to press open these seams so that they can lay nice and flat. So we're just going to place them right sides together and sew along the top edge here. When I cut everything out, this is how it originally looked. It was not even. You know, I had to cut some off the top already. So this, I already altered it on this one and made it a lot more even. So I'm just going to do the same thing. If you ever use a pattern and you know it's clearly not, everything's not lined up, you can just alter it to make sure it looks good. Okay, so I sewed everything up here. I like how it's looking so far. It's actually very neat. I'm going to add some boning, so I'll be adding one here, one here, one here, and then I'll add one on each side. And here I have my boning, and I just cut pieces that match each portion. So I just cut a few pieces where I'm going to put the boning, and make sure to measure them so they fit correctly. You don't want to put it so it fits all the way. You do want to leave some space at the bottom here. So if you can see, I did leave a little space there, half an inch, about, you could call it maybe a little bit less. I left some, that way we can sew this bottom part up because you can't sew through boning. Here I'm just ironing out the seams, that way it gives a more professional look and it will lay more flat. Finished sewing each tunnel. What I did was just sew about a half an inch tunnel so that these could fit, and I'm not going to use these anymore. I'm just going to take this and slide it right through. So all I'm going to do is shave down these so it's more round, that way it doesn't poke through the fabric. After you shave down your boning, then you want to insert it into each channel and just make sure you push it all the way at the top, that way it leaves enough space at the bottom for you to sew your bias tape. Here I just cut out a strip of fabric. This is 2 inches wide, and my corset in length was about 25, so this is about 26 or 27, just to give some leeway because there are some curves, so we want to make sure we have enough for the edge. So I have this bias tape maker, so all we're going to do is feed it through. Feed your strip through this tool. You just pull, iron a small piece, and then fold over in small sections, that way everything lays flat and doesn't get uneven. Okay, so here I do have some interfacing fusible. I'm gonna place this at the end of the corset. This is where I'm going to be placing my grommets. I like to place some interfacing there just to help give it more structure, that way it doesn't collapse. That's why I also added boning at the end as well, just to help keep it structured. Okay, so as you can see, everything is turning out pretty good so far. I sewed the binding down to clean up the raw edges, so it looks pretty good. Now we're just going to add the eyelets here. I'll have to use a hand needle at this part just to sew that part down, but everything looks pretty good, pretty neat. Now we're just going to add the eyelets. Okay, so now I'm just marking holes for the grommets. I'm gonna have 5 grommets, and you just want to make sure everything is as even as possible. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So just mark 5 dots there, and then did the same on both sides. So just gonna do the same. Alright you guys, so I got in the eyelets and everything. We're pretty much done now. It's looking very, very pretty. And now we just need to make the drawstring or ribbon to go in that. And I'm just using the same fabric. You can use like a white ribbon if you have that, or those things on the spools, that's fine. But I'll be making my own straps basically. So we're just going to cut a piece. This is about a little less than an inch wide of a strip, and you just fold it over, right sides kissing, so a straight stitch, and then you're just going to flip it inside out. And alright you guys, so here is the final look. As you see, it's all finished. I put the ribbons in the grommets. Everything looks really good. The only thing, I made that a little bit too short. As you can see, you tie it and it's not laying nicely, but besides that, everything turned out really good. Super neat. The one thing I have troubles with when it comes to corsets is the channels and sewing those lines straight, because that makes a huge difference in how the corset turns out. But I'm actually very happy as to how this turns out. So just let me know how you guys like it, and if you try it out, definitely tag me. Also stay tuned for a part 2 of this video.